Thank you. So I have to start with that we were not successful first time. So this was our second time, and I thought that our impact was very good. I used to be lead for the Research Excellence Framework, and I have written impact case studies. So I knew how to write good impact. So I didn't have a problem with the impact, I think, but I had lots and lots of problems with the first part. The first part where you need to talk about how you work together and who is doing what. The problem for me was that we have been working together for about 4 or 5 years, and I worked with lots of different stakeholders. So we had about, I just need to check, probably we were about 12 from all of us, from different organizations. And it just worked. We started during COVID and it worked. And then you need to write about how did you do that? And I tell you that I think first time I do agree with the comments what we got, that I don't think that I knew how to do that part. But at the same time, when I was writing the case the second time, I was doing an MBA. And MBA is all about leadership and all the theory. So I would very much recommend to know your, and I agree with Andy, that you need to have some sorts of theory around it, what gives a framework for your team. And as soon as you have that framework, then it's much easier to write about it. So I followed and I brought the book with me, is this one. And this is about the fearless organization and its psychological safety. It's possible that you followed something very different, but I knew all the theories about leadership. And what I really liked, it was actually the Google's Aristotle project. It showed that, if you look at all these different guidance, it says you need to have a diverse team, you need to work well together, you need to have a good reach. And, it's very vague what you need to have. And when Google looked at what makes a team very effective, it's not about diversity, it's not about expertise, but the most important is that you can be yourself in that team. And then I realized that that's us. That's what we done. I had the framework. I remember that I called my lecturer from my MBA program and I said, I did see this paper. What was that paper? And she suggested that, yeah, Edmondson paper, look at that one. And then I started to look at a book, papers, and the rest of it. And suddenly I had a framework. Suddenly it was just like a light bulb moment. And I think you need to find your framework. And it might be different because, you just say that, oh, I am very liberal. I am very democratic leader. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't tell how you actually work. So find the framework for yourself. I think you might even use the psychological safety approach. And then what I did was I did ask, and you mentioned that everyone has a voice. How do you know? I actually asked my team, have a very simple survey. And in that survey that, could you discuss everything? Was your voice heard? And I would recommend, I wish that I would have done it earlier, that when you have meetings regularly every 6 months, ask this question. The same questionnaire is available actually. And I remember that I have these, just a second, I have the questions in here on that. I think it's about 7 questions, very easy to analyze. And that brings up problems within the team or good things or good practices. And you collect that data. As soon as you have this data, much easier to write about that. Yes, large proportion feel that, yeah, we can discuss everything. We improved on that one because that part wasn't so good. Or sometimes you need to change members. And suddenly it's easier. I think we didn't have a problem bringing students along with us. So my project was we set up a new genomics training for NHS professionals. And this has been tried several times and spectacularly failed. And we were the first one who could actually do something which had an impact. But to convey it in a way that someone who is not in the specialist area, that was a little bit hard. So I think second time I had to step back a bit, and luckily I had a lady from the business school who didn't know much about genomics, but who had very good eye for details, and she just said, "Look, you need to tell it to people who are not in your field. Get away from the genomics, get away from the nitty-gritty, and try to explain what difference this made to your learners, to the profession, and the rest of it." And that suddenly, and she said, always keep it in mind that if it would have been just you, what would you have been able to do? If you wouldn't have this team, would you have been able to do it? And then I said, no, I couldn't. So write down what the team is bringing to the table. So then you identify what the role of the team is suddenly, and suddenly it makes sense. So then in terms of impact, I think we were pretty good because we had about almost $1 million income to do, to educate students. I agree with Andy, put hard numbers on, for example, student groups. So what impact you had on the students, what did you provide for the students? And I was a bit nervous about, this equality part because I wasn't sure what equality, diversity, inclusivity is going to mean here. But because we were educating mature students who are in the workforce, that's already a minority group. So I didn't need to go any further. I looked at the national data, how good the retention was, how good we are nationally, and how did my course or our course compare. And we were just far better than anyone else. So I just thought, yeah, okay, that's a good positive stuff. I would have never thought about that. So that was, I think, was very useful. Then we had survey of we surveyed our students, and we looked at how their confidence knowledge was in genomics at the beginning of the course and when they finished, and how they used that knowledge in service. And we have the data for much improved confidence, knowledge, and many of them are my past learners. They are leading in the NHS in nurse-led services. So we straight away had the impact or the effect of the course what we did. We also published our data. I'm supposed to be writing some other papers, but with the first paper, the good thing was that with our publication, there was a map, in terms of reach. And when you ask that, how far do you reach? And ours was to Australia and, to Africa and all those different countries. So if you have something like that, not that I think that's the most useful information, but it's very visual, straight away. Everyone loved it. For me, I was a bit like, oh yeah, but papers are read by other people. But when you see that map, it puts it through that, oh yeah, this has impact. This is impactful. We also had impact, as Andy, you mentioned, on team members. Many of our team members ended up in different leadership positions because they were part of our team, and they could do their jobs far better because they had information what they wouldn't have had otherwise. So always think about the team, that if they wouldn't have been there, would they be able to do what they did or not? If they would, then that's not achievement for the team. But if they wouldn't, then say it. Mm-hmm. So you don't need to say two big things, but think and analyze all team members, what they say. Then, we set up a new competency framework. And this new competency framework for genomics upskilling is now used in the NHS. So it's reaching about 60-something million people if you look at just the service. And we also demonstrated that all those who have been educated, they are providing much better service. They are cutting cost and waiting time. So probably, if you ask me, when we did it first time, I think we had the impact. But probably at the time, the NHS wasn't so much in the limelight. Second time it was. So I think also your timing for the topic is important, because if it comes out everywhere that NHS upskilling is important, probably it's a good timing to get a Gate award. So I think you also need to think about what is the external landscape, what are the policies, what do you want to meet, and why this is absolutely crucial. So it's a little bit more than probably what's in the Kate award description, I think.